guys, welcome back to Ashar Books. Today I'm going to do kind of a quick video of some of my toxic or bad habits as a reader. So I think these are really fun to watch, and I think a lot of people will talk sometimes about like their own personal toxic traits as like a person, and this is basically just that, but as your reader, what are your bad habits? And by toxic traits, people just mean like, what do you do that you kind of know is not great? It's not good, but you still do it. And we just had to kind of accept that about ourselves. I do think there might be a tag somewhere that's about this. I'm not doing the tag just because I don't know if there is or not. For some reason, I feel like I remember there is, but these are just gonna be like 6 or 7 of ones that I've been thinking about. And I'll tell you why I thought about this when I get to that one. But my first kind of bad habit or toxic trait as a reader is reading out of order. Now, if it's a fantasy series, also, wow, the wind is so strong outside. Holy crap. It's like super pretty out today. It's like sunny, but like, it's like a cyclone of wind out there. Wow. So if you hear some like, shh, that's why. So with reading out of order, if it's a fantasy series or like it's a chronological, like it follows a whole plot, I don't. That makes no sense. Don't do that. But if it's a series like, you know, about each couple, like interconnected particularly in a romance series like contemporary or historicals, I always read them out of order. And I know that drives some people bonkers. For me, it just is the simple fact of sometimes I just read the plot and pick the one that sounds the best to me. Sometimes I don't know. It's back in the day I would read out of order because I didn't know it was like second or third in the series. Now I don't really have that excuse because I usually always look it up on Goodreads first. So it tells you that. But yeah, I don't care. I will read them out of order. Sorry if that's annoying, but it is what it is. This is the biggest one that actually made me think about doing this list. And I'm definitely calling myself out here, okay? But it's okay. And that is that I will read the ending of a book first, sometimes. I know that is not good. However, I'm one of those people, and I've said this before, I'm definitely a, what's the road that leads them to the romance? Not necessarily in it just for what happens at the end, but like the adventure to get there, right? So a lot of times if I'm feeling, I don't always do it before I start the book. Usually what happens is I start the book and in my head, I know it's going to be an HEA because it's a romance, if it's a romance, right? But sometimes you just get a little anxious and you're like, either one of two things. I either get anxious and just want to know, like, oh, are my characters going to be okay? So I just read the last like couple pages just to make sure, or I'm not jiving with it and I want to see if the ending is like good enough to make me want to get there and read the rest of the book. I know this is a bad habit. It's totally a bad habit. And sometimes it usually doesn't bother me. Occasionally it has kind of been like, well, dang, I already read the end. What's the point of reading the rest of the book? So I'm really trying to break this habit. This is one that I don't mind that I do, but like part of me thinks I really need to like improve upon this and not do it anymore. Next one is dog earing. I don't dog ear as much as I used to, but I definitely still dog ear if it's my book. If it's not my book, if it's like a friend's book or a library book, I don't. I use a bookmark because that's just rude. But if it's my own book, who I've paid for, I will dog ear the pages. It doesn't really bother me that much, to be honest with you, but yeah. Okay, this is a big one that I've just recently been trying to stop doing, which is reading other people's reviews before I read the book or while I'm reading the book. Because sometimes I feel like usually it's on Goodreads, and there are some very like unhappy people on Goodreads, okay? There are some people who just really like ripping apart things. Now, sometimes they're justified, sometimes they're not. And everyone gets their own opinion, and that's the thing. Like I firmly have always said, like, it's okay if someone doesn't like the same book as you or doesn't like something, you can still like it. However, I a lot of times will be reading a book, either really loving it and I want to like read a review of someone who also really loved it, but I'm not finished yet. I'm like halfway through, or I'm like, I'm not sure about it or something, or sometimes I don't even mean to. Sometimes I'll just go to like add it on Goodreads, and you just start scrolling the reviews if you're me, and you don't even necessarily mean to, but you start reading them. And of course your eyes are drawn to the like 1 stars first, because you're like, wow, that's, to me, to give a book a 1 star, I mean, I would have just DNF'd it. Like, I just don't give 1 stars because I honestly wouldn't have just finished the book. So I'm really trying to stop doing this, because a couple times now, it's really kind of affected my reading experience. I'm not gonna say it affected my review of it or like my thoughts on it, but it definitely, like, a couple times has happened where I've loved it and I read someone's review and their opinion kind of shadowed what I was thinking and kind of like dimmed my joy. Because, sometimes things are valid, but you still don't agree with them, if that makes sense. Like, you can see how someone would see something that way, but you didn't see that or you didn't notice that. And then when you read that review, it kind of ruins it. So I'm trying my best. Add it on Goodreads, but do not scroll, or even just wait till I'm finished and then add it on Goodreads, because maybe that'll help, because I clearly cannot help myself. Next one I think we all do as readers, but that's buying a lot of books and not reading them, and or checking out a lot of books from the library and not reading those. So for me, I'm trying to be better at this, and I've been a lot better the past few years, to be fair, but buying a ton of physical books and only reading on my Kindle or something like that. So, if you buy it, I want to read it. I don't want to have it just sitting there forever and ever, amen. But the other one is the library, which is why I haven't been to the library much recently. I just would go get a couple books, but then get sidetracked, and then before you know it, they're due and I didn't read them. So it's a bad habit, and I need to break that bad habit, because, there's just no point in having them all sit around. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a little backlog of books that you do need to read, like a TBR, cart, pile, whatever. But I mean, I think for a while I got a little carried away. So I've definitely tamed part of that already. Next one is not finishing a series. I'm pretty bad about this. I have gotten better, I feel like, recently, but a lot of times, you'll read book, especially if it's like more than 3 books. If it's 3 books, I usually can finish it, but if it's like book 4, 5, 6, whatever, I have a really hard time finishing it. A lot of times, typically, it's because not all of them are out, right? So you read, say, through 3, but 4, 5, 6 isn't out yet. You get distracted. You don't go back to it. I have a horrible memory, so sometimes what happens is, like, I don't remember what happened in books 1 through 3, so then I would have to reread them before going to the next one, and I just get distracted. And so I'm trying to be better about this, because if I loved it that much, I want to finish the series. So this is one that it is a bad habit, but it more just annoys myself than anything. So I'm trying to be better at finishing series, even if I do have to reread the previous book before I move on. The last one is more, again, just something that annoys me, and that's buying one book physically in like a series, but not buying the rest physically. And typically this comes down to, I just don't have unlimited funds. I mean, does anybody? But especially if it's something, that you read and loved, and I do like to own a physical copy if it's a favorite, but a lot of times I'll buy the first one or maybe the first 2, but then never finish buying the rest. And it's just kind of annoying when you look at your shelf and you're like, oh, there's that series, but you only have one of them. It's just more of an annoyance than like a bad habit, but I'm trying to remember or I'll buy like the first book in a bunch of series that were favorites, rather than like, I should probably just like spend the money to buy a whole series and have it on my shelf, and then wait and buy the next whole series, rather than having like these piecemeal ones. Because then what happens is they change the covers and then they don't match, and then it's a whole situation. So not the best. All right, so those were just a few of my like toxic traits or bad habits as a reader. Do you guys have any of these? Do you think any of these are like awful? Which, I mean, listen, we all have our own opinions. It's okay. I won't have hurt feelings, but I'd love to know one of yours. Like, make me feel better. Tell me one of your bad habits that you do when you read. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.